This week on the show, we are tapping back into one of my most favorite topics in the world, which is Chinese medicine, particularly the whispers of qi and blood. So if you're not familiar, to give you a basic overview, qi is our life force and blood is a substantial form of our life force that helps sustain life as we know it within these human bodies. Of course, there is so much more to it, and that's why we have an entire podcast episode all about it. As you'll soon learn, there's just so much more to our blood than we realize, and there is so much more to these little sparks of heat and energy that create movement and sensations and emotions within our body. And it's part of the reason why I so quickly fell in love with Chinese medicine and decided to dedicate my life to it. Qi and blood are the very basic foundation of this medicine and way of living. And my intention with this podcast is so that you can better understand these two mechanisms within your body so that you can have a harness on your life force, as well as live according to your ever-changing patterns by understanding your body. And whether you're on the beginning of this path of understanding the body from a holistic perspective, or you've been in this for a while, I feel like we all get to a point where we start to understand that once we can understand ourselves, we can better understand the world around us. And so it's a full win here in terms of understanding these concepts. Highlights from this episode: the different types of qi in the body, the functions of qi, how pregnancy and postpartum are opportunities to influence your overall constitution through qi and blood, the functions of blood and its influences on our emotional and spiritual states, how plant medicines held at night may influence the state of qi and blood in our body. And at the very end, I talk about this interplay dynamic between qi and blood from the context of blood being the mother of qi and qi being the commander of blood. If you have any questions about anything I discuss in this episode, don't hesitate to reach out. This is what I love to talk about, as you'll soon find out. So you can find my contact information in the show notes. And if you'd like to work with me, if you're local in West Palm Beach or remotely, again, all my information in the show notes. Welcome to the School of Whispers podcast. This is your host, Stephanie. I'm a licensed acupuncture physician and herbalist with a background in psychology, health sciences, and exercise physiology. Within my own spiritual awakening, I found myself learning pivotal lessons when I got myself to be in silence. Within that silence, the whispers came through. This is my sacred space of vulnerable storytelling where my guests and I share about the magic that comes from a life of following these whispers. I'm grateful you made it here, and I hope this show inspires you to live a life of following your own whispers. Let's get into the show. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the show. Before we dive into the good stuff, quick announcement. This will be the last episode for 2024. I have a lot of endings to attend to at the end of this year, one of them being moving. So, and I moved the first. Also, like, advice from me to you that you probably don't even need because you would never do this. Don't move on the first of the year. Don't move on New Year's Day. It is a really great way to set yourself up for a chaotic holiday season. All right, now that we got that over with, let's get into the whispers of chi and blood. So if you listened to my recent solo cast on the whispers from the wisdom of Iboga, you may have heard my cute little anecdote about me looking into chi and blood while in this Iboga-induced state. And it really is just reignited, this fascination with these two things. So if you're new to the show, welcome. I am a practitioner of Chinese medicine, which includes acupuncture, herbalism, food therapy, medical qigong, lifestyle counseling, just a whole big cluster of basically a culture of medicine that it's the kind of thing where the more you learn, the less you realize you know. And I'll be a lifelong student of this. But there's a few main things, I would say 3 main things that are the very basis of this entire hundreds of thousands of years of medicine. And those are qi, blood, and the relationship of yin and yang. For the sake of time, I don't know if I feel like yin and yang deserve their own episode. And I'll briefly touch on it in a moment if you're not familiar, but I think everyone for the most part is familiar with how yin and yang just represents the dark and light, the opposites in culture, I think in a very broad spectrum. But I will get into a little bit of yin and yang concepts within Chinese medicine, just so you can keep them in mind without getting too deep, because qi and blood, they deserve their own podcast. They are the kind of thing where I feel that confining them within a name is limiting our ability to fully understand them. But because humans and knowledge and things like this, for us to I guess begin the understanding, they require a name. So giving a summarization overview, qi is yang and blood is yin. Yang energy is constantly moving. It's the quality of the world of life that we can't tangibly see. It's often described or related to fire, how fire is, again, constantly moving and burning and destroying and producing, and it moves upwards and it creates heat. That is the nature of yang, and qi in a lot of ways is very akin to that. Speaking from an esoteric or more Taoist level, the qi and yang energy are the heavens, the celestial bodies of the world. Our soul is qi, is made of qi, and our soul is very yang in nature. And when I say that, it's not, I think that in our Western society, we see yang as masculine. If something described as yang or yang, I say yang, it's masculine. And again, that's another confine. I think that's a huge confine. I think that the masculine can be a great representation of the yang, just in a sense of men run hotter than women, and they're, I guess, known as energetically governed by the sun, and the sun is a hot celestial body. And I guess the producers, the men are the producers in society, but even then, that's not really that true. So I don't love, if I'm trying to really give a basic description and relate to somebody who's just starting to get into this world, I will say yin is feminine, yang is masculine, but I feel like that is way too much of an oversimplification, and it can actually cause confusion. So that being said, qi is yang, blood is yin. So blood is substantial. We can see it, right? You cut the skin and you see the blood. So yin is the substantial things that we can see in this world. In terms of the elements, yin is usually compared with water because water is cooling. And water, while it has this formlessness, it has this nature of holding. And I think of the blood, how the blood holds all of our nutrients in our body. And if it weren't for the circulation of blood, this meat suit would not be nourished nor animated in a lot of ways, at least from a physiological level. I think qi actually provides more of the actual animation, but we'll get there. Another element that yin is compared to is the earth, and a really strong quality of yin in Chinese medicine is holding. Yin holds, whereas yang moves. So again, I think that could be maybe akin to a feminine energy. I think of the mother, like this mother earth planet holds us and nurtures us, and it's the ultimate yin. And it's the things that we can see in this reality and hold in this reality. So that's all I'll really touch on for now, for yin and yang, to create this basis for our good friends qi and blood. So let's get into qi. We'll start here. So qi is vital life force energy. It is the energy that animates and sustains all living things. If you listened to my other podcast before, when I explained qi on a Western allopathic level, I'll usually bring us back to that 6th grade science lesson where we talked about how the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and how the mitochondria produce ATP, which enables muscle contraction, which enables movement. And when that ATP is released in the body, it creates a heat, like a kinetic energy. I think kinetic energy and qi, personally, I feel like those are two really great synonyms or very close cousins. And driving, moving life force that relies on our food and the sun, all the nourishment to create movement. So on this note, qi, it manifests in various forms, such as energy that drives physiological processes, emotional states, and mental clarity. So we have, from a Chinese medicine perspective, various sources of qi in the body. So 3 primary sources. We have prenatal qi, also known as yuan qi. So prenatal qi is inherited by our parents at conception. Your prenatal qi is the life force energy of your mama, the life force energy of your papa, coming together to create that first little spark of you. So prenatal qi is the first spark of you. And it determines your constitution and your vitality. And if you're not familiar with the term constitution, I like to say that it represents our genotypes and our phenotypes, so our genetic expression internally as well as externally in the body. So this yuan qi, this prenatal qi, it resides mostly in our kidneys. And our kidneys are very special in Chinese medicine. And when I talk about organs in this context of Chinese medicine, I'm not really referring to the physical Western allopathic organ. I'm really referring more to the energetic quality, because you have to understand that in China, it was actually illegal to do autopsies at a mass level for a very long time. And so it was rare for a Chinese medicine doctor to cut open a body and be like, oh, this is this and that is that. So they came to understand, it's really, which is so fascinating to me, because like, how? But they came to understand the organs of the body from this level of energy by tapping into their own energetic qualities. So in our kidneys, we have this source of our primordial yin, our primordial waters, and our primordial yang, our primordial fire. And the whole body really relies on that source of I think they call it too, like our true yin and our true yang. It feeds every other system in the body. So taking care of your kidneys is taking care of your life force. I mean, taking care of all your organs, but like truly from a deep, deep level. And if somebody comes and they are presenting a kidney pattern, It usually takes a little bit longer because it means that kidneys are kind of the deeper of the organs in the body. So it takes a longer time for something to affect them. Or rather, it begins at conception. So with chronic states, it just takes a little bit longer. But something that's really fascinating to me is one of the few times somebody in their life can change their constitution and actually influence their prenatal chi at a mass scale is for women only. Women only get this opportunity, and it's through postpartum. So in pregnancy, women are, as you know, as many of us know, just fluxed with all these hormones that create life. Somebody can go for, if somebody does pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum right, then you could actually change your constitution. Say if you're a constitutionally weak person, your parents weren't in the best health state when they conceived you, and you were born and grew up as this constitutionally weaker person, allergies, disease, chronic illness, all mental illness, all those things. Well, because it's like pregnancy almost gives you a second chance to change that narrative, and you could actually, again, if you do it right, and I'm not going to really get into that because that's a whole other podcast in itself and I think a lot of it is objective, and a lot of it would be my personal opinion on doing it right, doing pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, but basically nourishing yourself and resting properly from just point blank right there, especially postpartum. Postpartum, if you nourish and replenish your body properly and you don't try to bounce back into normal life. I hate the concept of bouncing back postpartum. You're not meant to bounce anywhere. You're meant to rest and allow yourself to transform into a new person. And that new person could be constitutionally stronger than ever. And because it's possible to go to that one side of the coin, it's possible to fall into the other side of the coin, which is becoming a constitutionally weak person if you're not aware or just refusing to listen to your body postpartum. And so actually this segues us into the second source of chi, which is postnatal chi. So postnatal chi is derived from the air we breathe via the lungs and the food we eat via the spleen and the stomach. So this, for all of us, is our second chance in a way. If you're, again, a constitutionally weak person, if you have chronic illness, if you have an imbalance, don't worry. Just because there's this written code within your DNA, within your karma that you were born into of being constitutionally weak, having your prenatal chi not be at its best or being at a certain pattern, the way that you can turn it all around and you can actually have a massive sense of control and source of control is your postnatal chi. Actually, I would say that out of everything I'm going to discuss here, and out of pretty much everything in life, this 1% of something that we have control over is our postnatal chi. So how we nourish ourselves, how we feed ourselves, how we act according to our pattern. So in Chinese medicine, there's no such thing as a lifelong diagnosis. At least that's how I see it. It is a pattern that is ever changing. Somebody can come to me, they can have blood deficiency, and a woman especially, a great example, because we go through this moon cycle, right? Or menstrual cycle, rather. A woman can come to me at one phase in her cycle, for example, just when she finishes her period. After bleeding, she's chi deficient. She's a little bit low energy, not really wanting to get out of bed. She lost a lot of blood, and maybe she didn't have much of an appetite on her period. Well, she could come to me 7 to 8, 9, 10 days later, and she could be into ovulation, and she's exuberant, full of chi. So it's always ever changing, and that is where Chinese medicine and herbs come in. We're able to, yes, in some degrees, we do tap into your prenatal qi and your source of essence, which comes from that's a whole other thing, but it's a very special treasure within the body that derives from our prenatal qi. But while we can tap into those deeper levels with acupuncture and herbs, really where we're getting to is where the easiest way to make a change is through postnatal qi. So this qi goes through processes where they become either clear qi or turbid qi. Clear qi is used, again, for something else, for movement, for mental processes. Clear qi usually rises up, and turbid qi goes down. So that's, we poop or pee. And I think that our menstrual cycle, or when we have our bleed, when women do, that is a way to also purge levels of turbid qi that no longer serves us. So that's why, in my personal opinion, I think that bleeding is so important. And I don't think that it's for our best interests in terms of qi and blood. Actually, I know it is not in our best interest in terms of qi and blood to use synthetic substances or devices to stop our bleed. The issue too is when there's a disbalance within the intestinal systems or the bladder. It could even begin in the stomach or the lungs. When there's a disbalance there, the turbid qi that's supposed to move down or be exhaled in respiration actually will move up in the body. And turbid qi can induce mental fog. I think in the long term, it can turn into mental illness, even Alzheimer's and dementia. That's a whole other tangent that kind of goes more into the pernicious influences. But we'll put a pin in, we'll put a bookmark on that, because I will actually, that segues me into our next third source of qi, which is environmental qi. So environmental qi comes from external influences such as the weather and one's surroundings. I think that we can also exercise a big level of control within our environment. But I think that, if anything, there's been a little bit too much of a craze in the health world of controlling our environment. I really think that when we can have a handle, an understanding of control over ourselves, our internal world, and our nourishment, then we can understand that, yeah, there's certain changes and moves that we can make, but there's also a level of being out of control of our external environment. That's okay. It's okay. You're not going to die because you smelled your neighbor's laundry in the air. I followed and unfollowed an influencer who often talked about that, how fucked up it was for our lungs to breathe in that air. When you go to a friend's house, or if you go to the grocery store, you don't have any control over the cleaning products that they use. So in terms of environmental toxin load, we can do our best, but also don't freak out about controlling every single thing, because that's actually going to hurt your postnatal qi, and in a lot of ways. And of course, I don't mean to only talk about what we don't have control over in our environment. There is so much that we can control, such as who we invite and surround ourselves with. Like I mentioned, toxins, how we clean the space. There's a lot to it. And I just wanted to mention that here because it can be easy to slip into that. I know I have forgotten my power and how I can change things many times. And that's the fun. That's the fun side of being here is the remembering. But back to what we can't control in terms of environmental qi, let's talk about the weather. We have seasons and transitions, and within each season there are different pathogens with their own level of qi that comes with it, which starts to move me into what I mentioned earlier, the pernicious influences or pathogens. And I won't go too deep into this because these deserve their own podcast. I mean, like, I have this degree. My degree was expedited. It was 3 years. It's in China. It's 6 years. I am such a baby in this world. So I'm giving you as much of an overview as I can give within the span of a podcast. But the pernicious influences or the pathogens are wind, water, fire, dryness, and dampness. And they pertain to the seasons. Summer, fire; late summer, dampness; autumn, dryness; winter, cold. I didn't mention cold. And spring is wind. So these environmental qis have a massive influence on the state of balance within our body. And I really feel like it's important mentioning them too, because while we call these the pernicious influences, they just are. They're not good. They're not bad. It just is. And when I say, weak or strong, I think too, again, it's putting a confine around the true essence of qi, which is that it is neutral. Qi is energy, and all energy can be viewed and perceived as neutral. And I like to see the pathogens as a means of evolution within our body. And to stop myself before I get into a tangent on that, we're going to go into the functions of qi. For the sake of time and for your mental capacity, I'm not going to go deep into detail, but the energy pathways of certain organs will help enact these 6 functions of qi. And I will tap into these organ pathways to just further enhance your understanding and your ability to relate this to your body. So the first function we will discuss is transformation. The function of qi to transform is converting food and air into usable energy for the body. So the digestive system. So that includes the spleen, the stomach. The spleen in Chinese medicine could be, I guess, they say that you could compare it to the pancreas, but I honestly kind of see it as its own entity. Oh, if only I had the time. Actually, if you look into the show notes, I do get into deeper into Chinese medicine concepts with the whispers of the energy of your food. If this is really sparking something and you want to have more context, that would be a great podcast to listen to after this. But yeah, the lungs, respiration, are really a strong player in the process of transformation. All right, transportation. That's the second function of qi, transporting blood, fluid, and nutrients throughout the body. So it is that moving vital force, right? The heart would be a great example of an organ that has a strong influence in the transportation of qi. The third function is protection, acting as a defense against external pathogens. 4 is retention, so keeping organs, blood, and fluids in place. For example, preventing organ prolapse or excessive sweating. The organ energy system that is really, really responsible for holding qi in place in the body is the spleen. And the spleen is strongly influenced by our postnatal qi. So if you are properly nourishing your pattern, you can prevent and heal prolapse. And discussing excessive sweating, the 2 organs that are responsible for that are the lungs and the heart. How you would know that your heart pathway, for example, is having a hard time with the retention of qi, its duty of that would be getting really sweaty palms, especially when you're anxious. That would be a heart pattern. The fifth function of qi is warming, maintaining our body temperature. And our sixth function of qi is nourishing, supporting growth, development, and repair. And some of us might be thinking, wait, isn't that the blood's job? Yes, it is also the chi's job. And at the end of the podcast, I'm going to get into this interplay relationship between qi and blood. But for now, stay with me. We're going to get into the flow of qi. Qi flows through a network of meridians, which are energy pathways. The way I explain it to somebody who's brand new to this is that the meridians, they run on the surface of our body, and that's really, the meridians have these little sources of burst of energy, electromagnetic energy in the body. And if you palpate certain points, for example, if you bring your palm face down, you find your pointer finger and you draw it towards your body and you stop where you get to that squishy part. That's kind of that little V shape between the thumb and the pointer finger, and you press on it. You're going to feel a little jolt of energy there. That's a really strong acupuncture point called large intestine 4. Or in Mandarin, Hegu, or joining valley. So these energy pathways, they run on the surface of the body, and then they start to move deeper, and from the skin, the dermis, to the tissues and the muscles, to the bones, all the way deep into your marrow and deep into your organ pathways. I say that the organs are like the ocean of qi, and they run from rivers and streams to the surface of your skin. And that's how, with acupuncture, we can influence your internal organs, such as with fertility. Acupuncture is incredible. And Chinese medicine is incredible for fertility. So these meridians, they connect all parts of the body. So when your qi is balanced and there is no impediment of its flow, we have health and vitality. And when there's disbalance and lack of flow or obstruction of flow, this is where illness can come in. And this is where, again, Chinese medicine comes in, as well as Qigong. Qigong is a really great practice to influence your qi. If you want to learn more about Qigong, I will link in the show notes a whole podcast that I did on the practice of Qigong, which directly translates to the cultivation of your life force energy. Some examples of imbalances of qi. We have qi deficiency, which is weak or insufficient energy. Some symptoms would be fatigue, shortness of breath, kind of feeling like you can't really talk. I love to do my mantra chanting, and I notice that if my voice feels like I can barely put out a whisper, then I know, I'm qi deficient and I probably need to go eat some food. Another imbalance would be qi stagnation, blocked or restricted energy flow. Examples of qi stagnation would be emotional stress. If you know me, I love to talk about sighing. Sighing there's two different types of sighs there's one sigh that for me helps me diagnose qi stagnation, and it's somebody going, kind of a short sigh that's in the chest. And I always say to remedy that is you do a long sigh that goes, that helps spread the qi through the body. The kind of pain that you would be feeling where there's qi stagnation is a dull pain, a dull, heavy, distending pain. Another imbalance of qi would be qi rebellion. I love this term, rebellious qi, and it's a whole umbrella of symptoms such as acid reflux, coughing, burping. Basically, it's that qi moving in the wrong direction. I mentioned earlier how there's clear qi and turbid qi. When turbid qi is rising up, that's where things like hiccups, acid reflux, coughing, burping would come in. That qi is turbid and it should be moving down. And then the final imbalance of qi I'll mention is qi sinking. So the inability for the qi to hold things in place, such as organ prolapse. All right. So that's my spiel on qi for now. And now we're going to get into blood. Blood, also known as shui in Chinese medicine, shui is blood, blood is shui, is a vital substance that's closely interconnected with qi in itself. And we'll get into the interconnection in a moment. And it is essential for nourishing and moistening the body. Blood, like qi, is fundamental to maintaining health and balance. Blood is the mother of qi. I just want to say that here. I will get deeper into it, but I want you to keep this in mind as I'm explaining all the concepts around blood. Blood is the mother of qi. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, blood is dense. It is yin in nature. So it's a material form of qi and serves as the basis for life. So I know that saying it's a material form of qi could cause confusion, but let's take a moment and just say that all life force is qi. All life is qi. Qi is the very beginning of life. And from there comes the evolution of qi. And I would say that blood is an evolutionary source of qi. I think about like the first spark of life on this planet was qi. And as evolution began, qi came from the formless to the form. And so blood is a form of dense qi. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, reach out. We can have a conversation about it. You know, I love these things. I do this podcast for absolutely no monetary value, just out of the love and the passion of discussing and spreading this knowledge. So blood nourishes the organs, the tissues, and the skin, and it ensures vitality. So two basic disbalanced states of blood in the body is blood deficiency, lack of blood, and blood stagnation, obstruction of blood. So in this program, we learn a lot of Mandarin, a lot of Pinyin, and one of the first phrases that we had to memorize, which I no longer have memorized because there's so much else going on in here. But one of the first phrases we had to memorize in Mandarin was, when there is movement, there is no pain. Where there is obstruction, there is pain. And that's another great, just basic foundation of Chinese medicine, is where there is disbalance, there is no movement. And no movement could be due to deficiency of life force, of blood to move, or stagnation. And deficiency can lead to stagnation. Stagnation can lead to deficiency. It's all an interconnected cycle. And when you come to a Chinese medicine doctor, from a very basic point of view, what I'm trying to do is to create movement to relieve your pain. And, you know, most people, it brings you to my table and opens you up to the world of Chinese medicine. Usually for us, for a lot of us, it's pain. Pain brings us to our knees, and it drives us to want to find something else. And that kind of brings me further back to what I was mentioning before, is, does that mean pain is bad? No, I mean, it's not necessarily good. It's neutral, but it's an evolutionary process that drives us to change and to seek balance, or to seek a new pattern of being. But to digress, if somebody is experiencing a lot of dryness or low energy, qi deficiency, there's usually going to be an interplay with blood not being in its balanced state. Blood also anchors the mind and the spirit. The spirit is also known as Shen in Chinese medicine, and thus providing emotional stability. This feels so important to mention because, especially women in our society, we are encouraged to stay thin and small and to eat vegetarian meals, and we aren't properly educated on our cycles and the ebb and flow of qi and blood and energy as we build blood and release blood. And so many women across history, especially modern history, have been seen as like hysterical, or they have the highest rates of mental illness. We are a demographic that has the highest rate of mental illness. And a part of it is because we aren't nourishing our blood. I think that there is a time and place for a vegetarian or vegan diet, but that's in according to a specific pattern. And so I just personally don't think that having any static diet serves your body, whether that is carnivore or vegan or vegetarian, any side of the spectrum. That is going way too far onto the spectrum. Balance is key, right? And why I'm doing this podcast, my whole intention with it is when I learned how to be aware of my chi and blood states, I finally started to understand how to ebb and flow within my diet and my lifestyle. And that's my prayer. That's my hope for you. Okay, so basically, if you're feeling mentally unwell, look into your diet. That's a really great place to start. If you're feeling unstable and ungrounded, begin with blood, and then we can move from there. That's at least what I would do if I were your Chinese medicine practitioner. All right, moving into the formation of our blood. So blood is formed through an interplay of certain organ pathways. The first that I'll discuss is through the pathways of our spleen and stomach, which is directly sourced into what I discussed earlier, that postnatal qi. So postnatal qi creates something called gu qi, or food qi. This form of qi is derived from our food and the drink that we process by the spleen and the stomach. And this is in a lot of ways in terms of influencing your postnatal qi, influencing the state of your body currently right now. This is step one to influence your blood and your qi, is what you eat. And then what happens is that gu qi moves towards the lungs, and the lungs work with the spleen to create circulation of our qi, which aids in blood production. I don't want to create too much confusion, so there's another name and step within the lungs, but let's just say that the gu qi is processed by the lungs to become something else, and then it's processed, our life force moves that gu qi to the heart, and that's where that qi turns into blood and sends that blood all throughout the rest of our body. We call the heart the emperor because without the heart there would be chaos in the body, because our blood wouldn't be properly circulated to perform its vital processes. If you listen to my most recent podcast on my recent journey with Iboga, I spoke about how I learned, and it's one of those things where it's, not the easiest to make it all sound as enlightening as it did when I was in the ceremonial space, but I learned that a great way of looking at it is that the heart energetically is the God within. And if in terms of speaking of qi and blood, it's the source. It's the source of that blood before it gets distributed to the rest of the body, and that little electric force of light is what sends it through. And I like to see that electrical force of light to be of source, of God. And I could go on. I could go on and on to try to make it understandable to the level that I got to understand it, but it's gonna just become a word salad. So let's leave it at that. The heart is the emperor. The heart is the God within. We also say that the heart is the seat of the Shen, the spirit. So that further just drives home that without proper nourishment of blood, then your spirit is going to feel, we say disturbed, Shen disturbance. There's a lot of influences there. I will do a podcast on Shen because that's a whole other thing. It's so cool. It's so good. But that just, for the sake of time, we won't get into it. I'll have to do proper research for that, but stay tuned for that. And then to mention the kidneys' role in blood formation, they support the creation of marrow and bone health, which is a deep process within the body, but we can relate that to Western medicine, how the whole process of creating erythrocytes, which are blood cells, begins in the bone marrow. All right, let's talk about the 3 primary functions of blood. I've mentioned them before, but just to say them one after the other, they are nourishment, moistening, and housing the spirit. So if you're experiencing dryness in your skin, your hair, your nails, maybe dryness in the muscles, the way I would see that is dehydration of fascial tissue networks. You would have a body worker probably let you know if that was going on, if you're not very tuned in to what fascia should feel like when it's properly hydrated. And then dryness within your organs. So that could look like lung dryness, having a dry cough. Yeah, so if you're experiencing dryness on those levels, then nourish your blood. And again, the Shen is responsible for fostering mental clarity, emotional stability, and restful sleep. If somebody's having a hard time sleeping, then to me, I'm like, okay, that's a Shen thing. And usually what I do is I go straight to the heart. And from that perspective, look into how the energetic pathways of the heart may not be properly functioning. That may be impeding the flow of blood so that somebody is not feeling properly anchored in their sleep. Another organ that has a strong influence with blood and sleep is the liver, and I'll get into that in just a moment. All right, the organs that govern blood, I mentioned before, the heart, ensuring proper circulation, the spleen, transforming food and fluids, and the liver. The liver is responsible for storing, hi kitty, the liver is responsible for storing blood and regulating its distribution. So they say that at night, so during the day, our qi and blood circulates all throughout our meridian pathways to the outside of the body, to the inside of the body. And at night, our blood and qi moves deeper and no longer circulates from this outside perspective and circulates more deeper into the body. And the blood at night is held by the liver. So energetically, in Chinese medicine, if the liver is able to properly hold the blood, then the Shen is able to be anchored within sleep. A symptom of the Shen not being anchored within sleep is having really crazy, wild dreams that make no sense, or going into the astral realms and astral planes. Yeah, from an esoteric spiritual level, it's not a bad thing necessarily if that you're in your sleep going to the astral realms and planes. But if you've experienced this, that that can be exhausting. And long term, you're going to feel that deficiency within it. So if somebody's suffering from that, I would go straight to nourishing the liver blood. On the other hand, talking about the heart, if somebody's having dreams that have to do with real life people and real life things and scenarios that cause a big emotional reaction, that would be more of heart blood thing going on here. Another thing I would actually want to mention is how plant medicine influences the Shen and the blood. A lot of classic plant medicines such as ayahuasca, we'll mention iboga as well. They're done at night for the most part. And rather than our qi and our blood being stored deep into our internal organs, they're circulated at a rapid pace to the external parts of the body, and we open ourselves up to these astral realms. So if I have anyone coming to me, or if it's myself who has just recently experienced a plant medicine ceremony such as that, it's especially held at night, and they're feeling a little bit disoriented, or they just want to feel anchored, or they're having insomnia, or just whatever it may be, in order to assist in that reintegration of the mind, body, and spirit, I would jump right to nourishing the blood. Okay, let's get into the relationship of qi and blood. So blood is the mother of qi, and qi is the commander. So as the mother, blood is constantly nourishing the qi, and as the child, the qi is in a constant like gimme, gimme, gimme relationship with blood. Without blood, qi would lack its ability to, like any substance, to actually thrive and to manifest and perform its own functions. If it weren't for blood providing nourishment to organs and tissues, these organs and tissues wouldn't be able to generate and store qi within them. As I just keep on touching into this interplay and this interconnected weaving relationship of qi and blood, I see these koi fish. If I had this tattoo of two koi fish in a dance, in an ebb and flow, and that is exactly how qi and blood work. It's the yin and the yang. So while blood nourishes qi, it also anchors and stabilizes qi. As I mentioned, the shen is our spirit, right? So the shen is the non-substantial. It's the things that we cannot see. And that means it is qi in nature. So blood anchors qi, preventing it from becoming too erratic or dispersed. I also see it as it's the wood to the fire. Or we could call in the visual of a hot air balloon, how the qi is that heat, rising air within the air balloon that's allowing it to rise, and the blood is the actual basket and the saddlebags on the basket of sand that keep the balloon from being whisked away in the wind. To further drive home this interplaying connection, I'll say that when blood is deficient, qi becomes unstable, and it can lead to symptoms such as anxiety, restlessness, or shortness of breath, feeling like you can't catch your breath. Now looking at the perspective of qi as the commander of blood, qi generates blood. So while blood nourishes and anchors qi, qi generates blood. So qi transforms that nutrients, as I mentioned, with the gu qi going to the heart. Qi transforms nutrients from food and fluids into blood, ensuring the continuous production of blood. Qi also moves blood. So qi governs the circulation of blood, propelling it through the vessels and ensuring it reaches all parts of the body. That qi, I think of how the heart has this electromagnetic force, this electric pulse. If you've ever got an EKG, you can see right there in a physical writing that pump of qi that sends your blood and the rest of your life force throughout your body, which to me is it's really cool to me. It gets me excited. So if qi is stagnant, blood circulation is impaired, leading to pain or clotting. So the kind of pain where there's more influence of blood stagnation that you would feel would be sharp stabbing. As I mentioned earlier, if there's more of a stagnation of qi, it would be dull distending. Qi, dull distending pain, blood, sharp stabbing pain. And the last thing I'll mention, how qi commands the blood, is that qi contains the blood. So it is that force of energy that holds blood within the vessels, preventing conditions such as excessive bleeding or hemorrhage. How I know that somebody is in the beginning of stages of qi not enabling the process of blood being held within the vessels would be somebody telling me that they bruise really easily. So to just mention one last time with what I mentioned in postpartum, how you can make a huge change in your body, it's because of this. We lose a ton of blood and we go through a massive trauma with giving birth, and we use every little drop of our life force, of our qi, to enable a new whole container of qi and life force. I mean, we're also using our qi over the course of 9+ months to create life. And so you have to see it for what it is. you can't and you won't bounce back. Okay, my friend? I'm clearly saying this for somebody here, but if you properly nourish your blood, you will become vital more than you ever could imagine because of life force, because of hormones, and also because of purpose. I think that a really great hack you could give yourself if you're somebody who's chi deficient is give yourself purpose. Find your purpose. Make it simple. Being of service. Let that be your purpose and let that drive your life force. You will actually find the whole force of devotion to your purpose, the devotion to service, actually a hugely effective way to reverse a chi deficient pattern or a depressive pattern. So to finish off this podcast, I just want to give a brief overview of the interdependent cycle. I've mentioned it again and again, but just to really drive it home and to just leave you maybe with a visual or just something that you can repeat so that you can really understand this symbiotic relationship. So blood depends on chi for its production and movement. Chi depends on blood for its nourishment and stability. Blood depends on chi for life force, for movement, for that yang energy. Chi depends on blood for that yin energy, that holding and nourishment. So one cannot exist without the other. And I feel like that would be a really great segue to get into yin and yang theory, but we're almost an hour in. We're going to stay here. Thank you so much for listening. If you want the notes for this podcast, I will present a trade to you if you leave me a review on either maybe comment on this video on YouTube or leave a review on Apple Podcast, maybe give me a 5-star rating on Spotify, take a screenshot, send it to me, and I will, create that trade by giving you the notes for this podcast. I know it's a lot of information and some of us are better at retaining through reading. Regardless, I appreciate you for being on this path, for being here with me, for sharing your chi, your life force with me, and we'll leave it at that. If you want to work with me or connect, you can find all of my information in the show notes. And a reminder, I will put podcasts that I've done in the past that relate to Chinese medicine if this really sparks a passion inside of you to learn more. As always, sending you my love, and I will be feeling your energy on the other side in 2025.